Hello and welcome back to another episode of The Water Guy with Paul, your Richmond, Virginia, Connecticut Advanced Water Systems water guy, and
This is Ethan, your Richmond small engineer.
and together we're going to break down another wonderful episode in a way that's educational and fun and terrifying all at the same time. It's kind of like a roller coaster. So, today, I'm just going to jump right into this because those of you that have found us before, you know that we talk about all things that are water, and some of it's kind of bizarre, and today is not going to disappoint you. So, this is one of those things, like I said, that a lot of times in our business, we pull things out of current events, and we ran into something about 2 weeks ago. And it kind of it was unusual because we don't normally hear about things like this, but it's radioactive, basically radiation and water. Yeah, that doesn't sound good, does it?
Yeah, not really.
So it's one of those things we don't really pay much attention to because radiation is one of those things it's doggone hard to pinpoint it and measure it and see what's going on.
Right.
Especially trying to do it like house to house. It can be done, obviously, but it's one of those things that even the municipalities have a hard time testing for this stuff regularly. But yeah, our radiological contamination episode here is going to dive into some of the things that we see and some of the things that you need to be aware of, and ultimately try to plan on not exposing your family to any of this stuff.
Sounds like an exciting plan.
Yeah. This is one of those, you want to be proactive. You don't want to find out that you've been dosed after you've been dosed.
Absolutely.
So basically, I'm going to start off with some stats here. So drinking water, and we're focusing on radiation and drinking water for pretty much this entire episode. I'm not going to dive into a lot of the airborne stuff and things like that. But drinking water, the estimate from the EWG, the Environmental Working Group, which is a very reputable group out there that does a lot of work on water quality, they say that over 170 million Americans can have drinking water that contains radioactive elements at levels that may increase the risk of cancer. So that was basically some testing that was done 2010 through 2015, and those results were actually generated from public water systems. So yeah, they basically analyzed data that's already out there from the municipality, so it wasn't like they're going out there and making anything up.
Right.
And the cool thing is they actually got a website that I would encourage folks to check out. They have a database, and it can show no matter where you are, no matter where you're listening. It's got a lot of mapping out there. And I'm not getting endorsed or anything from EWG. This is all just a public service announcement at this point here, because they are reputable and they do drive a lot of awareness around things that are in the water before folks really find out the hard way. But they have map out there, and they mapped the common things, but there's a lot of information you're going to be able to find that will kind of tell you in your particular area what the most common elements to find would be. So radiation is so tough to talk about because it's invisible, right?
Yeah.
It's energy for the most part. But this stuff, actually, it comes from a lot of different sources, because a lot of people they wonder, well, where does it come from? If, did somebody set off a nuclear bomb somewhere and we're just getting dosed from it? And not necessarily. There's a lot of naturally occurring radiation that can be out there. But just because it's naturally occurring doesn't mean it's healthy.
Right.
I mean, lead is naturally occurring. You don't want to drink a whole bunch of lead water. Obviously, you drink lead, you'll be dead.
True.
There's
also traces of radium in the soil on the East Coast.
Absolutely. Yep. Radium is one of the big ones here.
That's why tobacco can grow so easily, which is why tobacco is bad for you. One of the reasons, at least.
Wow. I had no idea. See,
Yeah.
Ethan is dropping all sorts of knowledge bombs. I had no idea that there was a lot of radium in it. So it's in the tobacco, or it just helps it grow?
It's in the soil, and when it soaks up all those nutrients from the soil, it in turn is one of the things that tobacco just absorbs. And
Yeah. Well, if it absorbs it, it becomes it. Mm-hmm. So, yeah.
as we've learned.
If you really want to stay away from radium, you probably want to stay away from tobacco. It sounds like.
Don't smoke.
Don't smoke. Put it out with water, but make sure that water doesn't have radiation in it, because then you're just putting fire out with fire.
Yeah.
So, so basically, how bad is radiation? Is it one of these terrorizing things? We've got radiation hitting us from the sun every single day. Radiation is the reason why this planet is green. If it wasn't for that, we wouldn't have life. So it's not all bad. It's the dosing of it, and the forms that you can get dosed from. But the EPA, for the purposes of human health, has classified all ionizing radiation as carcinogenic. All of it. So there's clear evidence that high doses of radiation cause cancer in various organs. But it should be said that the probability of developing cancer decreases with lower doses of radiation, but it does not go away. So there's no safe dose of radiation,
Right.
really. You just want to try to protect yourself from it. Let the plants absorb it and turn it into something that we can use. So one of the things that we see radiation wise in the water, and if you have municipal water, you have access to the water report. And a lot of these places have shifted from giving you a hard copy of it to actually giving you an invite or a link to go check it out online. And it's a lot more cost effective for them to put a report out there that everybody can tap into and look at. But I encourage everybody to look at your report. If not for radiation, you should look at it just to see what's in your local water. So one of the things that's on that report is something called gross alpha. And gross alpha is basically, it's gross alpha radiation is a type of energy that gets released when certain radioactive elements decay or break down. Some examples, like uranium and thorium, are two radioactive elements that are found naturally in the Earth's crust. Obviously, they're out there. There's uranium mines, which, of course, they use uranium for nuclear power plants and all sorts of things that need to run for long periods of time and provide a lot of energy. But basically, over billions of years, these elements slowly change their form and produce decay products like radium and polonium. Whenever I see polonium, for some reason, I think of Prince. I do not know why. Do you know? Does that ring a bell with you too? Is that, or is there something really wrong?
A little
in my head?
bit. I'm a little hip to that.
I know why now. Apollonia. That was that girl, his girlfriend.
Okay, yeah.
Okay,
yeah,
so
yeah.
now it all makes sense. So when I see polonium, I think of Prince. Very bizarre. And anyway, during the process of decaying and producing radium and polonium, energy gets released. And gross alpha radiation is one of the forms of that energy. So as a result, this gross alpha radiation can be found in your drinking water. So that's where so we've already set the stage here. We said basically you really don't want to be exposed to any radiation if you can avoid it.
Right.
It's not something that your body requires. It's not a nutrient, and you're not supposed to get a certain amount of radiation every day. Now, there's a lot of natural and man-made radiation around us all the time. So it's almost impossible to shield yourself entirely from radiation. But, the stuff, if you're putting half a gallon to a gallon of water inside your body every single day, you definitely want to try to eliminate radiation from at least that.
Right.
That's a big constant dosing that you can definitely control. There's other things, human-made, like medical tests, like X-rays. There's actually road construction materials, which I couldn't get any more details on what specifically they're using for road construction that might be radioactive. But that definitely piqued my interest.
Right.
I was like, man, if this wasn't like a water show, I would love to dive into what they're building the road with.
Right, because we're driving through construction zones like that all the time.
Yeah, and they make you go really slow. So just
That's
think
just
about
more
that.
time stewing in that radioactive material.
Yes.
Yeah.
Which we will talk about that a little later.
Awesome.
Yeah, there's a nice segue coming in that you're going to love. So, obviously, every source of radiation gives you a different dose of it. A medical treatment has an extremely high dose of radiation, like X-rays. That's
Right.
a perfect example. You go in there and they hide behind the other little room that's covered in lead, and they put the apron on you.
Yeah, the
And
lead apron.
You always feel uncomfortable when you hear that buzz, and then you just wonder what happened.
Yeah.
Nothing changed, but apparently you don't want.
Yeah, you just got pictures of your bones
Got
now.
pictures. It's shot right through your body, so obviously it's got some power. But anyway, yeah, you can get dosed with man-made stuff like that. You can also get like we just said, radionuclides in your drinking water, your lifestyle. And this is one of those things a lot of folks have probably heard about. Flying in airplanes is
Really?
yeah, they say pilots are exposed to more radiation than most people, pilots and flight attendants,
Wow.
because they're higher up, they're closer to the
Closer
sun.
to the sun.
Yeah.
Constantly. Yeah, for
Constantly.
their job. Wow.
Yeah, their career is basically a higher radiation career. And another one I didn't even think about, but living in a high altitude. Like you live
Yeah.
in Denver and you're like, oh, this is great, so healthy. Well, it's healthy, but not making fun of Denver because we have an office out there too. But I just hope that they realize that altitude has put them at a higher exposure for being exposed to radiation.
Now, hey, if y'all have an office out there, that just means people should be more careful and more attentive to that. Probably call y'all, right?
It's exactly right.
Uh-huh.
Yep. We need to try to, if you're going to be dosed because you're higher up, you're also probably going to be dosed because it probably exists in your drinking water as well. If you live near a coal mine, which is kind of weird, but yes.
West Virginia, Kentucky-ish
Yep.
area.
Some jobs like mining, those put you at higher risk of higher doses of radiation. So it's one of those things without even thinking about it, you could get exposed in a multitude of different ways. So how did today's episode get born, right?
Yeah, how did it get born?
You've never heard me talk about radiation before. So we have I'm trying to decide if I won't say the name of the particular municipality just because I don't want to create a bunch of hate mail and lawsuits and things like that. But I actually hold in my hand right now, you can hear it shaking,
Yes.
the notice to consumers of the town of from the Waterworks Department. Says important information about your drinking water. Important information about your drinking water exceeding the primary maximum contaminant level, the PMCL. That's the bad one, right?
Yeah.
For gross alpha, and this notification is dated March 29th of 2024. So this just happened. You could tell because we're only in April right now.
Yeah.
This month, the Virginia Department of Health, I can say that because we're in Virginia, notified the town that our water system was recently found to have violated a drinking water standard.
Oh, no.
And it says, I want to repeat the first two words. This month, the Virginia Department of Health notified the town, right? This month. And this notice is dated March 29th, which I would assume that means that they didn't really know about this until March.
Right.
Okay, that's important. So, let's see, the next sentence here. Please be assured that this is not an emergency. So, I love that part of it. However, the town is obligated to inform you and you have a right to know as a customer that this has occurred and that the town is and to know what the town is doing to address the situation. And then it goes on a little more detail. It says, the town routinely monitors the water supply for the presence of drinking water contaminants. On March 8th, 2024, we were advised by the state health officials that the town water system has exceeded the primary maximum contaminant level for gross alpha over the most recent 4 quarters of testing.
So they technically knew about this.
This is a year's worth of testing.
Yeah.
That they just now realized that they may have gone over the limits.
This announcement came out on March 29th.
Yes.
That's correct. And
March 29th.
They were advised by the state health officials that on March 8th,
yeah,
a whole 21 days.
They're saying, hey, we just found out exactly 3 weeks ago. So, and this is kind of interesting because then if you really read into this, over the most recent 4 quarters, so, over the last year, but we just now found out about it. And then it says the standard for gross alpha is 15 picocuries per liter. Which is a measure of it's a measure of radiation. It's a really bizarre thing that I can't really explain, but it's something that's quantifiable. You can kind of measure it, and you have some recommended safe levels. And 15 is the recommended safe level for gross alpha. Then it goes on to say the average level of gross alpha over the last year has been 25.8 picocuries per liter at one of the groundwater wells that supplies the system, and they call that entry point 4, and 30.025 picocuries per liter at one of the other wells. And then the interesting thing about this is that they started the testing there was a town hall meeting, and this is kind of more backstory on it, but they started testing July of 2023. So, it's kind of funny.
Yeah.
They started testing in July 2023. That was a year ago almost. On July 15th, 2023, town staff asked for advice on a contaminant of gross alpha. So, apparently they didn't they're saying they didn't know that they had exceeded it until March of this year. But July of last year, they were already like, oh, how do we fix high levels of gross alpha? So if you read between the lines on there, it's kind of scary that these folks, let's see, you got July, August, September, October, November, December, January, February, March. That's 9 months. So for 9 months, people were exposed to significantly bad levels of gross alpha and didn't know about it up until this notification came out. So, the limit being 15, they did some retesting, and now they got 40 in one of those wells and 20 at the other one. So either way you look at it, they're doing horribly bad on repeated testing.
Yeah.
So that's about all I'll be able to say about that one. So if you're understanding what I just said, it's basically that there's testing that is done. That is true. But they don't tell you immediately if there's a problem.
Right.
They will kind of wait, because the way testing works over a period of time, it's not the peak, it's not the high level that you're going to test for, it's the average.
Right.
So I've never been one of these folks that really feels that it's okay to be poisoned part of the time. I think that, if you exceed it, you exceed it.
Right.
I understand entirely the scale of a problem that if you have some spike in it, all of a sudden you've got millions of dollars in treatment that's going to get put in on something that may have been a fluke. But then again, I'm also not a big fan of being poisoned. Yeah. So it's kind of that double-edged sword, and they don't have to tell you. We covered this on the fluoride episode about the actual notification. I saw one of the notifications right to an elementary school, and that notification clearly stated on it, you've exceeded in that case it was a secondary contaminant level, but you have up to 12 months from this from this notice to post a warning or at least an information sheet to all of the consumers of the water, and it has to stay up long enough until the problem gets fixed. So basically, you could wait a year to put up your notice, but if something, a month ago at that point, if you fixed it, you can immediately take the notice down. So it doesn't have to be there for very long at all.
Right.
So I say all this because I'm not a conspiracy theory person, but I do want to let everybody know that drinking water and the water that comes into your house is one of those things that you don't want to really wait until you have a problem. You need to be proactive.
Right.
And the governments and the municipalities, their own, at the end of the day, let me see. There's actually a quote that I wanted to bring up a little later, but now is a perfect time for that. It is the there it is. Federal drinking water standards are based on the cost and feasibility of removing contaminants. So it's kind of interesting. It comes down to money.
Yeah.
And can you really do it? Is it realistically possible? Sure, we can fix the water, start off with reverse osmosis, purified, perfect water. But now all of a sudden everybody's going to pay 10 times what they're paying for water.
Right.
So a lot of folks would be like, oh, no, I don't care. I just want to drink whatever's coming out of the tap now. And if somebody wants better than that, they can go and do that. Well, that's where we come in, because we're the ones that come out there and actually put something in there that can protect you and your family and guests and anybody else that might come into your house from things like radionuclides.
Yeah.
Things like that. So that long story, that's how this episode got born. And you could see it was pretty recent. So
Yeah. All the information and everything.
yeah, I mean, it's literally, we got it all. There's no BS on that one.
It's a lot of highlighter you got on there, too.
Different colored highlighters.
This man takes copious notes.
Yeah, we do not like being wrong.
Mm-hmm.
It's impossible to say that nobody's ever going to be wrong, but we do everything in our power to make sure that we do enough research and due diligence that we understand what we're getting into and can make recommendations that aren't going to backfire on us.
Right.
Knock on wood, I have not had anything blow back on us because of the amount of back history and research that we end up doing on everything. So, now that we've kind of talked about the intro, let's get nerdy. Types of radiological contaminants. So, there's some different types of substances that can be found in the water. Radium, uranium, cesium, stuff like that. But basically, radioactivity is the phenomenon of spontaneous emission of particles or waves from the unstable nuclei of some elements. And then there are 3 types of radioactive emissions. And I didn't really understand a lot of this. I hated physics. Didn't really have a lot of appeal, and it was a huge auditorium type environment that just was no fun. And it was very boring. But some of you may remember alpha, beta, and gamma rays.
Yes.
Yes.
I do remember that.
I know, it sounds like a terrible fraternity. Alpha, beta, gamma. Actually, that almost does sound like a fraternity. But it sounds like an engineering one. It's bringing back memories.
Oh, yeah.
I was not in a fraternity, just for the record, ever. We were banned as wrestlers. All right, that's all we'll give on that backstory. So the alpha, those are the positively charged helium atoms. The beta particles are negatively charged electrons, and gamma rays are neutral electromagnetic radiations. That's kind of the more science-y explanation of alpha, beta, and gamma. Radioactive elements are naturally found in the Earth's crust, like we talked about before. That's why you hear about uranium mining and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. A number of radionuclides are found in surface and subsurface waters. This is where it gets a little scary. We've got all it looks like a code. If you're
my
looking
gosh.
for examples, we get hydrogen 3, carbon 14, potassium 40, lead 210, polonium 210, not related to Prince. Uh, RN. Oh, I just forgot about radon 222, radium 226, radium 228, and what the heck? Thorsium. I'll figure it out later. TH 232. I already forgot what that one was.
TH element.
Thorsium?
I got you.
Damn.
Thorium, you had it.
Thorium. Yeah,
you got
it just didn't sound right.
Yeah.
Thorium sounded like one of those Marvel movies. But yes, thorium 232.
Yeah.
And then we got the uranium 234, 235, and 238. Everybody knows about those, right?
Oh, yeah.
There it is right there. Thorium in my next highlighted section. Uranium, thorium, and actinium are 3 what they call norm, naturally occurring radioactive materials. Meaning people didn't make them. They're already there. We just happen to, somehow end up with them in our environment. But those are the common ones, the uranium, thorium, and actinium. And then radium, which is a descendant of the norm series, is one of the radiotoxic elements that is found in aquatic systems and can be penetrated into groundwater. Natural ways, though. Aquifer rock dissolution. So a lot of folks with wells know about, I've got a deep well, I've drilled through the bedrock. Mm-hmm. So as that rock decays, it can release radium, which is actually part of the problem in that one that we mentioned earlier. The other way you can get radium is the decaying of uranium-238 or thorium-232. So uranium is actually one of the more common ways that we end up with gross alpha over here. The higher, actually, there's a kind of a chart that says if you're over 15 picocuries per liter, assume that it's all coming from uranium. So it's that big of a deal. I guess if you have uranium, it puts out so much of this stuff that if you got a significant amount, it's actually the scientifically safe assumption to think that it's coming from uranium. And basically those are all natural processes. There's some non-natural things like nuclear reactors and nuclear warhead experiments. Those are the key sources of human-induced radionuclides. Nuclear reactors, they produce radioisotopes that hand out gamma radiation, stuff like that. Which, this is kind of a funny thing. I have to laugh because this is just a grueling thing to talk about. So we talk about nuclear.
Yeah.
Right? And nuclear reactors and nuclear warheads. Mm-hmm. What is nuclear?
As in, like, nuclear energy?
Yeah, just what's the difference between nuclear and nuclear? Like a nuclear bomb versus a nuclear bomb. I'm putting him on the spot here. He's looking at me like, how dare you do this on live TV or live?
Doesn't seem to sound like there's a difference, but...
Well, you are a very smart man. So there is it. A lot of folks think that there's a difference, that there's actually a nuclear bomb. You got a nuclear bomb and you got a nuclear bomb. Well, nuclear is a made-up term that somebody that mispronounced nuclear came up with. It's the same thing. It's just mispronounced.
Interesting.
But it's funny. I think it was on those of you that have ever seen The Simpsons. Because remember, Homer works in a energy plant where there's radiation all the time.
Yeah.
And he says nuclear. And that was kind of what made me think about that. But yeah, a little bit of, you could drop some knowledge on your friends. Say, what's the difference between a nuclear bomb and a nuclear?
I'm going to be honest. Now. I just realized you were saying two different things.
Oh, it sounded too similar.
Yeah, it sounded too similar to me. I didn't even realize you weren't pronouncing the
nuclear versus nuclear.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I didn't even realize that.
Yes.
I just thought you were saying nuclear twice. I'm like, it doesn't sound
your brain just skimmed right over it.
Yeah.
Yeah, no,
that sounds so similar.
That's how it got started. Somebody mispronounced nuclear, and they said nuclear bomb, and there we go. We got a whole new offset that is apparently sometimes your brain can't even process the difference in when you hear it.
Yep.
That's pretty funny. Yeah. So you missed the nuances of an in-person podcast here, because I was watching his face. It was like his brain was computing, and all of a sudden I saw it just go, wait a minute. There are two different words.
The gears were turning, and I was like,
yeah.
He's
like, what's he asking me?
He's getting at something really hard right now, and I'm missing it. Let me do some more thinking real quick.
I'm the audio guy. Don't ask me questions about nuclear. So, fun fact. Let's see. The fun fact is about this other one that's out there. And this is also... So strontium-90 and cesium-137 are also formed by nuclear reactors. They're kind of the waste. And the fun fact is that cesium, and this is going to be hard as hell to do on a podcast, but the spelling of cesium in this particular this note where we dug this up is Caesium. Normally, when you see cesium, it's Cesium.
Yeah.
And so I was like, well, what the heck is this? And I was like, is this pronounced cesium? It's actually, they're both cesium, but in English versus American, that's the English spelling.
Like the European English spelling?
Yes.
AE?
Isn't that, I was like, this is science. Why would there be a difference? It should be like one spelling.
That's crazy.
But yeah, so cesium is cesium with an A. Same thing. Another fun fact. It's not all dry. So anyway, there's we talked about mining activities. Those are technically like, they're natural, but we are disturbing them by using man-made activities. But those mining activities are actually pretty bad on polluting surface and groundwaters.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's some more really dry nerd out stuff that we're not even going to talk about. I bet you're happy about that.
I'm bummed personally.
So let's see, something that a lot of folks may have heard about. What are we doing on time here?
We are 32 minutes in.
Oh, it felt like the halfway point.
Uh-huh.
You know what? Do we need to take a break? Probably not.
You
You need to take a break?
I will leave it all up to you.
Let's take a break.
Okay.
Let's leave a word for our sponsors.
Awesome.
We'll be right back. Don't go anywhere. Episode 20.
21? 21.
We'll check that out. We'll let you know. This is a cliffhanger. What episode number are we on?
Well, I'm not uptight, not unattractive. Turn me on tonight. 'Cause I'm radioactive.
All right, and this is your sponsor speaking. We're in it because we love what we do, but we're also in it because we love growing the Connecticut family. So if you're in the Richmond, Virginia area, or any area, we just want you to get your water fixed. And Connecticut is by far the best product that's out there. If it wasn't the best, I wouldn't have left a successful corporate career with the big box store to do this full time for the rest of my life, and that's what I do. So that's the word from the sponsor, and back to the show. And welcome back, and hopefully the word from the sponsors was motivating and inspiring, and you want to...
I would go as far to say is that it was invigorating.
Invigorating, I love it. I love it. And the answer to the question, which episode are we on? It is 21.
Yeah. We hit the 20 episode mark last time.
Yes, that was the April showers, where we talked about the historic rainfall this winter. Mm-hmm. I remember it well.
Talking about all the radiation and radium, it reminded me of something. Have you ever heard of the issue with the gentleman named Evan Byers with the Rathador medicine?
No, is that the energy drink?
No, so Radithor was a medicine that they had back in like the early 20th century, like the 20s and 30s.
Oh,
Back when
back when I was a boy.
back when they weren't concerned about things like radiation and dosage and whether you should take methamphetamine as a over-the-counter drug or not. So this gentleman, a very well-off gentleman named Eben Byers in 1932, had an illness, and they were trying everything to take care of it. Nothing was working. So his doctor finally recommended, "Hey, we have this new medication that we've been doing research on called Radithor. You can give it a shot." It worked, and he felt so great that he kept taking it. And what happened was his jaw fell off.
Oh my gosh!
Yeah, that's a photo of him afterwards.
What? Oh, so?
Just all that radiation from the radium in it.
Oh my gosh!
they-
I'm looking at a picture here. It's horrific.
Yeah, so,
And he actually felt good for a while before his jaw just fell off.
dude, this medicine made him feel euphoric. Like he just kept buying it and taking it.
And he probably held it in his mouth for quite some time because it must have tasted good. Oh,
Yep. So
jeez.
don't ingest.
Yeah, that reminds me of I heard the story about these. Of course, it's always the Russians. These guys were hiking or survivaling or camping or whatever in the Russian wilderness, and it was like Siberia cold up there.
Yeah.
And they found these batteries, and I can't remember. This has got to be like 20 years ago. I heard this story, but basically they found that they found that the batteries emitted heat, so they used them kind of like a campfire. There was no flames or anything like that, and it turns out these things were radioactive, and of course they all died of radiation poisoning. But for one, I never really got the question answered of where in the heck do you just find radioactive batteries laying around in the Russian wilderness? But yeah, that was I don't remember all the details beyond that point, but I just remember it was Russians, and they were using these things to cook on and keep themselves warm like a campfire, and they all died. So radiation may seem like a good idea at the time, but it can cause problems later on. So, yeah, are you finding
I'm just, looking at it. 3 men found hot metal cylinders in a forest and used them to warm themselves overnight. They had found Soviet strontium-90 sources, suffered severe radiation sickness and long-term injuries.
Yeah, that was basically how I remembered it.
I mean, to be fair, if I'm hiking
if I find something that's warm, I'm going to huddle up to it.
Exactly. I don't care if it's radioactive.
You at the time, you just don't care.
Exactly.
So radiation is one of those things that you can't. Obviously, it might even taste good, it makes you feel good, but it's gonna zap you. Mm-hmm. A lot of folks listening have heard of radon gas. So if you've ever had a house inspected and you live in any part of the country where there's a lot of granite formations under the surface, I believe there's a lot of states that require a radon test as part of like the home sale. Mm. So that's one of those things that they basically put these little sensors in your house and close the house up, and then you don't disturb it, and you come back after a few days, and then they measure how much radon gas they've been able to kind of meter or absorb.
Right.
And then they measure it and find out if it was a safe level or if you need to put some sort of remediation system in there. But radon is a gas, kind of like what I just said, and it comes out of the rock. But because it's coming out of the rock, it also goes through the underground aquifers. So we actually see, it's not common particularly here in the Richmond area, but as you go more towards the mountains, there's a lot more granite and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So we actually do test for radon gas. And it's not as big of a deal up here, but the Raleigh office down there, they've got a whole bunch of specialized radon systems. So you basically you don't want radon gas in your water, because when you have it in the water and you ingest the radon gas, it diffuses into the stomach wall, and it basically the stomach wall tissue gets irradiated by the radon, because it's got a kind of a short half-life of 3.8 days, but it when it's doing its thing, it doesn't like your tissues. So
Yeah, that's fair.
so radon, yeah, it's one of those things. You don't need it, you don't want it. There's no benefit to it, and we do have systems out there that specialize in the radon gas, which is actually time for another not funny, but interesting story. Radon's a really big deal up on the East Coast, up the Jersey, New York type areas, Connecticut, and up there, they came up with these systems that your water kind of runs it through this big chamber, and the big chamber it kind of like sprays your water in these trays, and the trays kind of drip down into a collection center in the bottom of it, and then that water goes and gets put through a pump and gets pumped back into the house. So it's kind of like aerating the water. And then this thing has a really slow turning fan that keeps kind of like the airflow going up with this little like a chimney type design, and it blows the radon outside because you don't want it in your house, obviously.
Right.
And they came up with this because the other way that you can, but is definitely not recommended, is to use certain carbons. So instead of turning it into something into the air and then blowing it outside on a small dose, they run their water through these gigantic carbon tanks, and the carbon will adsorb the radon gas. And the problem is it turns into, I can't remember which isotope of lead, but it turns into radioactive lead. And if you can imagine, you've got these tanks, and up there everybody's got a basement.
Right.
These tanks are always in the basement, and a lot of people up there have like a family room or something down in the basement area, and it's messed up because a lot of the family room walls, the couch backs up to the room where the carbon tanks are. So you're sitting there watching your TV, and you're basically parked right next to these radioactive tanks. And then you, of course, changing them out. Nobody wants to go in there with all wrapped up in lead to pull these things out, because then you're going to get exposed. So basically, long story short, if you have radon in your water, it is not one of those things you're going to want to try to find an online quick fix or a local plumber to rig something up, because that's just bad. Radon is nothing to play with.
Yeah.
There are specific systems that you really need to look at. So anyway, that's it about radon. This was one. Developing fetuses is a developing fetus is especially sensitive to ionizing radiation. That's alpha, beta, and gamma. At doses higher than are typically found in most drinking water, radiation has been shown to impair fetal growth, cause birth defects, and damage brain development. Basically, if you care about life at all for your child, you want to protect them from radiation. But this also even says there is no evidence that a dose threshold below which a fetus would be safe from those effects. So basically, any radiation is bad radiation.
Yeah.
And I didn't know this because I'm a dude. But so you can fact check me. I don't know. I just found out that pregnant women they will not give you an X-ray. Have you ever heard that?
No, but it makes a lot of sense.
It does. Right now, it makes a whole bunch of sense.
Yeah.
Because the developing fetus you can't really protect it because that gamma radiation is so wicked.
So sensitive to it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's crazy. So
that's why they do ultrasounds. That's why they have to do ultrasounds.
Well, that makes all the sense in the world now.
Yeah.
So yeah, you don't want to. They just for dudes, we just get the lead apron and zap away. Mm-hmm. Who cares? I know it's terrible. So let's see. Natural uranium, naturally coming out of the ground, Doesn't mean it's natural. Doesn't mean good. It can induce chemical toxicity, especially God darn it, nephrotoxicity. There we go. Try that third time. Which at first we were like, "What the heck is nephrotoxicity?" And I thought it had something to do with dead people because like necro.
Yeah, no,
necro
I gotcha.
and nephro. Yeah,
I gotcha.
well, there's a huge difference between necro, which is death, and nephro, which is kidney damage. So yeah,
I mean,
but
they're not too far off the par from each other, but
no,
there's a difference.
Yeah, if I'm a nephrophiliac, that must mean I like kidneys. But if you're a necrophiliac, you like dead people.
Yeah,
that's creepy. All right, way off. So, more than you thought you were going to learn today.
Yeah.
Oh, geez. So yeah, natural uranium. But like we said, natural uranium is one of the biggest producers of that gross alpha, which is what we are seeing around here. So some sources out there, some scary things. Here's a great example, because who eats seafood? You eat seafood?
I do eat seafood.
I love seafood.
Me too.
You know, it's supposedly one of the healthiest things you can eat. So I don't know about you, but when I see that I'm going to eat something that came out of the North Atlantic or the Arctic Oceans, I have this image in my head of like, that's the best water that this fish could come out of. It hasn't been contaminated.
Fresh, crisp.
Fresh and crisp, right? Cold right from the second it was pulled out of the ocean. So, here, you're about to shatter reality for everybody. In the Irish Sea, where the British nuclear fuels plant at Sellafield in the northwestern UK released radioactive material over many decades, beginning in the 1950s after the war, right? The last war. Studies have found radioactive cesium and plutonium concentrating significantly in seals and porpoises. So how did they get it? Because they ate contaminated fish. You are what you eat, and I make sure that I don't eat seals or porpoises, but the fish that they eat are the same fish that I think we like to eat.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that was kind of like you've got to be kidding me. The other studies have shown that radioactive material from Sellafield and from the nuclear reprocessing plant at, I'm going to butcher this one, it's French, Cap de la Hague in France have been transported up to the North Atlantic and Arctic Oceans. So that's, I don't know if they physically transported them or if they just said, hey, let's take it up there and dump it. But anyway, a substantial part of the world's radioactive contamination is in the ocean now. So, I know. Yeah, there goes my love of feeling like seafood is the answer, right? Yeah. So, that's crazy. We talked about the EWG at the beginning of this thing because I'm not paid or endorsing or anything like that. It's a darn rock solid group. They do a lot of things out there. We're back on land now. We're no longer in the ocean, but we'll go back in the ocean in a minute.
Yeah.
It has like we said, 170 million Americans are estimated that their drinking water contains radioactive elements at levels that may increase the risk of cancer. So I was thinking to myself, 170 million, what's the population of the U.S.? The current population, for those of you that don't know, is 332 million. That means 51% of the population. You have a better chance of being contaminated from radioactive elements than not. That's kind of scary, isn't it?
It's kind of lame.
Kind of lame, I know. Yeah, so the EWG focused in on 6 radioactive contaminants, including radium, radon, and uranium. Those are like the most common things to really dial into. And here, you're going to love this. California has more residents affected by radiation in their drinking water than anywhere else in the United States. That's got to hit home.
Yeah.
So, yeah, California has the most of the most number of people affected by drinking water radiation. But they're not by themselves. 80% of Texans are served by water utilities reporting detectable levels of radium. 80%. That's like almost everybody.
Texas is big, man.
Yeah, and almost 80% of them are getting dosed.
Mm-hmm.
So there's abandoned uranium mines on Navajo Nation lands, which, of course, we don't get a lot of detail on because those are like sovereign territories. But there's this next one. This scared the bejesus out of me. The lingering nuclear waste from the Manhattan Project. I didn't know much about the Manhattan Project.
Mm-hmm.
I thought this was just something that happened up in New York. Right, I just figured Manhattan. I was way off with that one.
Yeah.
Yeah, so the Manhattan Project, just to get everybody up to speed here, was the project, it took place Washington, New Mexico, and Tennessee. These were the different locations. And this is basically where the testing and the research was done for basically for nuclear bombs.
Yeah, it was the project that the movie Oppenheimer was based off of.
I haven't seen that. So, okay, now I got to go see Oppenheimer.
Yeah.
But, yeah, so maybe that's why I gave you that deer in the headlights look, because I was like, what the heck is... I've heard the Manhattan Project. I didn't really know. Yeah. But, yeah, there was... So they were doing all this research and stuff, trying to come up with a nuclear bomb, not a nuclear bomb. And Washington, New Mexico, and Tennessee. And they transported a lot of this nuclear waste over to Missouri. I believe it was St. Louis. So there's a place over there where potassium-65 was being stored in drums. And I saw a picture of this. It was a black and white picture because it was like back in the 50s, right? These steel drums, these big 55-gallon drums, were there. It was like this massive area. It was outside, not covered by a building or anything. Half of the drums were just laying on their sides. It wasn't like they had done any protection, but these drums started rusting and basically rupturing. And they got into this place called Coldwater Creek. And then, basically this creek, at this point, the whole cleanup effort has cost over $400 million. And they said they're still going to be working on this till 2038. That was like the last estimate.
Wow.
But yeah, they took these drums and then they moved them into the Bridgeton landfill, like among other places. So it was in Missouri. They actually transported some of them to Colorado, if I remember the story correctly. Mm-hmm. So somebody can go dig in on that one a little longer. But this one was interesting because they moved it to a landfill. Now remember, this landfill was way back before they started putting liners down.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. So this stuff is friggin' everywhere at this point. And they had the landfill where this nuclear waste was. And then there's like the regular trash. And the regular trash underground, it was so deep, actually caught fire. And it is still burning.
Really?
Can you believe that? So, yeah, there's trash on fire. And, this was a rabbit hole that we started going down. And we're like, what the heck? How can there be a trash fire still going on? And they said that the smell, the fumes coming out of there, within like a minute of you smelling it, you would have a nosebleed. I mean, it's this. If I was somewhere where if I took a breath of something and a minute later my nose started to bleed, I'd get the hell out of there.
Yeah, seriously.
I would not live there. I wouldn't be going to Target or anything like that. I don't care if it's that bad. So they end up putting a system in there that kind of like sucks out the juices and sucks out the fumes.
Right.
And something happened where the landfill got an excessive amount of water, probably from rainfall, and it actually flooded that system. So everybody's like getting gassed for weeks while they were trying to get this system back online. But yeah, you can look it up, the Bridgeton landfill in Missouri. So
wow.
Yeah, horrible. Ugh. But anyway, so 80% of Texans and the Navajo Nation lands and then the Manhattan Project in Missouri And then the last one I had on the list was phosphate mines in Florida. So those are big contaminators. So no matter where you are in the country, West Coast, South, Southeast, middle of the country, you're probably exposed to things that you didn't really realize. But kind of scary. But yeah, we could nerd out about levels, but it's not really going to be anything that you're probably going to retain. Just know that any amount is not an ideal amount.
Absolutely.
But for those of you that want to write something down, combined radium, the EPA's radionuclides rule, this is the last guideline, says 5 picocuries per liter for combined radium, 30 micrograms per liter for uranium, 15 picocuries per liter for gross alpha, and 4 millirems per year for gross beta. So you can nerd out on that all you want.
Absolutely.
Those are the numbers. We talked about some of the health, well, a lot of the health impact there, especially for fetuses and developing offspring, things like that. But genetic effects of ionizing radiation, it induces mutations in germ cells. Germ cells are the male sperm cells and the female egg cells, resulting in structural alteration in germ cell DNA that are passed on to offspring. So basically, it takes your junk and twists it around so that your kids are completely mutated, I guess is the word I'm looking for. Yeah, that's
altered.
Altered, yeah, mutations, altered, yeah. Bad stuff. Hereditary disorders, they can lead to premature death and severe mental illness. So, as soon as I read that, I don't know if you've ever seen the movie The Hills Have Eyes.
I have not seen it.
Oh, geez.
No, I haven't.
Don't see it, because it's one of those things you can't unsee it. But if you really want to see about some terrible mutations, watch that movie and you're going to be like, oh my gosh.
I'm going to look up photos of it real quick.
And it's actually pretty messed up because The Hills Have Eyes. I've seen a lot of them because I'm twisted like that.
Oh, wow. Yeah. This is
It's about these folks that basically they live on the old testing grounds of the nuclear the test sites.
Uh-huh.
So it's like folks that have been exposed to years and generations of radiation and DNA mutations. Basically, you don't want to go there.
Yeah.
They're not nice people. They lost all their niceness. So I shouldn't laugh, but movies like that just make me not want to go to California. But all right, so I'm just waiting for your reaction.
I was looking through them. It's kind of crazy.
Yeah, it's got some stuff that you can't unsee it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So some other little quick facts. Strontium 90 mimics calcium, so you kind of concentrate that stuff in your bones, raising the risk of leukemia.
Right.
Yeah, that's if you're kind of wondering how do you get leukemia. It seems like radiation has a lot to do with the risks there. Mm-hmm. But anyway, yeah, that was my little pregnant women are never X-rayed. Not should never, but says are never.
Yeah. Made
it sound like it will never happen unless there is something so horrifically bad that they don't have any other option.
Yep.
But cesium, okay. I was going to tell you that cesium is one of those things that the eye doctor wanted me to take. My vision was deteriorating, so she wanted me to take some cesium. I know it's a terrible bad dad joke, but I'm not a dad, so
there's no such thing.
No such thing. All right, good. Well, hopefully you can use that one again. I got plenty of bad dad jokes.
Perfect.
Maybe on a future episode. But the cesium can deposit in the pancreas, heart, and other tissues, and then it will continue to emit radioactivity over time. So you not only get dosed, but you carry it with you, and it's the gift that keeps on giving.
Right.
So, yuck. But the gross alpha radiation, that's kind of like that general radiation dosing that we were talking about, it loses its energy rapidly within a short distance, and it does not pass through the skin. So it's not a hazard if it's outside the body, but it can be harmful if you eat, drink, breathe, or take in something inside your body that has gross alpha radiation.
I don't know about you, but I'm breathing all the time.
Yeah.
You just did.
I took a deep breath of... Actually, we've got some state-of-the-art cleaning stuff in here because now I'm not quite germaphobe, but I definitely am terrified of what I could be exposed to, especially in this. Our office is awesome because it was built back in the 50s, but it's got some of the challenges of materials from the 1950s.
It's a quaint little spot.
It's like home here.
Yeah.
I spend a lot of time here. So a lot of times when we're out there with folks or talking with people about water, I get this, oh, my water tastes great. I love when I hear that. Actually, I hate it when I hear that because it just frustrates me to no end. Mm-hmm. But that gives me the opportunity to say, hey, did you know that you cannot see, smell, or taste gross alpha radiation or radioactive elements? Testing is the only way to know if you're in your water. And that's kind of like a lot of things. We did some studies here on some of the more common things that we can test for. Uh-huh. And I think it was like 95% of them don't have a taste or a smell.
Wow.
They're just invisible in the water. Just dangers trying to take you out without you even knowing they're there. So don't take a chance. Everybody needs a drinking water system. It's just that simple. You don't want to find out until almost a year later when the municipality finally tells you, oh yeah, we've had some like double the amount of gross alpha for the last year. That's probably how they would roll it out there so quick that they hope you're not going to pick it up.
To just be like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
That's fine, I guess.
But where I'm going with this is a lot of folks are like, oh my gosh, you've scared the hell out of me. What do I do now? Well, you can go ahead and get tested. Sometimes the testing is so ridiculously expensive that it's almost better to try to just do something proactively and assume that you have it, which is an approach that we use sometimes when we're doing a house, like let's say we're doing some sort of renovation or project in a house prior to 1978. We have to do lead-safe work practices because if you don't, it's an over $30,000 per day fine from the EPA. So if anybody out there is listening and you've got a contractor working on an old house and they're not going ahead and checking you for lead, they are exposing you and themselves to huge fines. But if you're not, you don't have to test. But if your house is older than 78, you can assume that you've got lead and do lead-safe work practices anyway without ever having any documentation. That's kind of how we approach the water treatment. You don't want to wait until you actually pop on the test for certain things. Sometimes it's better to just know that it's a high probability that it's going to be in there. Let's just plan for it. And then there won't be any unpleasant surprises down the road. But the beautiful thing is that almost everything that we talked about here today, with the exception of radon, which is a gas, is removed by a good reverse osmosis system. So it's interesting because I said almost everything can be taken out except for the radon. Reverse osmosis is extremely effective at taking out dissolved solids like uranium, things that are causing this radiation to come out, and it captures them and keeps them from going on any further in your water distribution. But reverse osmosis, the only thing it doesn't take out is gas. So gases will actually go right through an RO membrane. And that's kind of why if you're in an area that you think you might have radon, for example, you need reverse osmosis plus a radon system. Or something in there, I hate to say a carbon filter, because if you do a carbon filter, you better be replacing that thing every single year. Otherwise, you could be looking at a radioactive hazardous material in your home.
Right.
So if you decide to do something like that, consult an expert first. Don't just read something on the internet. You want somebody that's what they do as a profession. They fix water and they take care of these scary things like that. But get a reverse osmosis drinking water system. I can't say that enough. That is the best, most economical way to go ahead and knock out almost everything that's in your drinking water.
Yeah.
And drinking water is the water that goes inside your body. So
Yeah.
everybody can use it. It's going to save you money. I just had a customer the other day that has he's been buying bottled water, and he has one of these new fridges. And the newer the fridge, the more expensive the filters are. I did the math, and he drinks a lot of water. $2,300 a year, almost $200 a month in water and fridge filters.
Wow.
So at that rate, you could absolutely get a professional grade drinking water system put in there that will be connected to the fridge, to your faucet and everything. So the Kinetico system is one of the few that can actually be connected to the fridge. So if you're not in our area down here in Richmond, Virginia, reach out to a Kinetico dealer somewhere. Look it up, kinetico.com, and find a local dealer, and they'll be able to hook you up with whoever's in your area, because Kinetico is the best, and that's the best way to protect your health, your family, and your bank account in many cases. There's some other methods you can use: water softener with cation resin, water softeners with anion resin. Those are not exactly good approaches unless you're talking about trying to remove it from the whole house, kind of just knocking it down. Because sometimes these things they can collect what they're grabbing. So kind of like the carbon filter, you may create a problem over time. So don't get a water softener with either any kind of specialized ion exchange resin unless you know exactly what the limitations are and what you're trying to take out. The best answer, go for reverse osmosis and get a radon test. A radon and water test is actually pretty cheap. You can probably get one yourself. Radon, it's easy to remember. Radon Away. Just look them up. Radon Away.
Radon away.
I think you could probably order a test for about $25, and you could test your own water. It's a little tricky to do it. Just make sure you do it 100% right. But if you're concerned about it, and we actually use Radon Away systems because they have basically proven that they're the best way to handle radon as a problem if you have that. So
Radon away. Water test kit. Radon away. Water test kit.
looking it up as a public service announcement.
It's air water kit. Show me the price.
Yeah, the drinking water.
Log in to purchase.
Oh, yeah. Well, we're dealers, so that's probably why. So call me up. I'll go ahead and order one for you.
As I say, yeah.
I'll have to get some more of those because we ran out, and this just kind of reminded me that it's time to restock. But if I remember right, they were like $25. A small price to pay if it helps protect your family.
Absolutely.
So look us up, KineticoRichmond.com, 87760-WATER. Check out our YouTube channel, Kinetico Richmond, and you're already listening to Water Guy Podcast, and we appreciate that. Make sure you like and subscribe and all that good jazz. It just helps us to grow, and it's really, really good for the morale of the team here to know that all of our research and fun content is going to good use.
Yeah.
And give us some examples. Send us a submission form if you have any ideas for a future episode. Next one will be our 22nd. So
Oh, yeah. It
we've
will
done
be.
at this point 21 hours of what are we at total time wise?
What about hour and 8-ish minutes?
Oh, geez.
Total.
Yeah. So we are over 21 hours of content at this point. So we look forward to touching you on the next episode, and be safe. Take care of yourself and your family, and stay hydrated.